Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Today is June the 10th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar and 1441 on the ancient sun calendar. There is indeed an eclipse today. So today is a very important day for us as a nation. Another day that says, you know, we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. When you see the heavens, and what they call it the heavens, but this is really the heavens. When the heavens respond to what we're doing, it's a big deal. So you all, I published both in this meeting and on social media about the building on First Avenue here in the territory. And we have been doing further demonstrations on that building because we know that there are some things about governing that we're being reminded of. So there was an event, some testing that I went through in February with regard to the building. And we passed those tests. Clearly, we can tell by the record we passed those tests, by all records, not just our records, but all records that we passed the test. And since then, the hybrid subjects have been, when they did not see any activity on the building after they had marked it vacant, they've been now starting to do things that prompt us to move further in the process. And so one of the things that they were doing was a proposed land use for the property. Proposal doesn't mean that anyone's doing anything. It just means that some paperwork is going around and they wanted input. So I just so happened to go by there and see the posting. And they didn't post it on the property, they posted it outside of the property, right in front of it, saying that they're you know, they want some input on how to proceed. So I attended, and I didn't really attend, I just watched on Zoom a meeting that they had. And they mentioned a whole bunch of other things, you know, in the meeting. It was a quote-unquote city council meeting that they had by way of Zoom, and so I watched it. So I can't say I attended. I just watched. I didn't say anything. But during the meeting, well, right before the meeting, I had sent some documents regarding the building, and one of the things that I was prompted to do by their proposed land use proposal, that's a request. A proposal is a request. So I looked at their request and I said, okay, what do I do with this request? And the ancestor said, look up land use and see what it is they're talking about, because you need to know that. So I looked up some land use codes and some other, both on all three levels, and actually on 4 levels. They have international building code, which is IBC. They have, and the IBC is the building codes that took the place of, and they didn't take the place of it. They were just copied from the universal building codes that we put in place. And so the IBC codes, I looked them up and I saw some things that I put into an affidavit, as well as I went down to the state, quote unquote, state level and looked at their building codes. And then I went down to the federal way building code to see what the codes are, look at them, see how to use them, and then integrate them into what we're doing so that we know that process. Because that's one of the processes by which vacant buildings are claimed. So in order to claim a vacant building, and this is something that we all need to know, all of the things that we've said thus far, we must do. For example, name change, judicial proclamation, what else? Oh, the trust document, the proclamation that says we have a trust. Another proclamation that says that we've terminated all corporate contracts. And then we lien those black instruments that have been used to violate and hypothecate who we really are. And once they got all of those documents, including I created titles and I did a couple of other things for the building prior to the February detainment demonstration. And so they saw the documents, and after the demonstration was over, they handed the documents back to me. And I went back to my domicile, and now we're here where I'm creating other documents to go further in the process. Because no one has moved into it, they can't move into it. So they sent a proposal for some people who want to move into the building and occupy it. So we've liened everyone, and through this process, we actually found out who the real ones that were claiming to own the building. We found out who they were through doing further research and going further in the process. We did liens on everyone, and there's a couple of documents that I want to show you. One of them is the municipal. So we, the Moors, have proclaimed that we are also the municipality for the land, and we spell municipality differently from what they spell it, the way they spell it. And I was watching a video today by Anna von Reitz and some others, you know, the subject, Anna von Reitz, and they mentioned in the video that essentially all of North America is one giant municipality. And they're correct about that. This is the first time I've heard them say that, but we proclaimed that 4 or 5 months ago. May not even been that long. So with regard to these codes, they're universal codes and international codes, and I put that in some of the paperwork that accompanied this document that I'm going to show you. But once we learned the codes and put them in the documents along with the title, we did another document. This one is a notification document that we need to do because it's part of the administrative process, where we place a notification of sovereign land use and inhabitation on the public record. So the sovereign postmaster, Moorish American postmaster, delivered those documents to them over the last 3 days. They received them. And the sovereign land use and inhabitation document is just saying that the building is no longer vacant. And it really never was vacant. It's always been on our land, and it's ours, but we're going through the processes that we need to go through in order to properly not only proclaim the properties that are on our land, but also to ensure that those coming after us, there will be a process in place for them. So here is the document, one of the documents that I wanted to show you, Notification of Sovereign Land Use and Inhabitation. And I'll show you some of the quoting here. This one is dated for today because this is the last one that I delivered to them, that the Sovereign Postmaster, which is me, and all of us, all Moors are the Sovereign Postmasters, delivered to them. And of course it starts with our sovereign court action language, all rise and stand. And then it was attention to the ones that were doing business as mayor and as city planner and blah, 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 all of that. And, you know, the subjects that are doing business as those. We put the subjects in blue. Then we put the property location as a sovereign land property. It is on our reservation, which means when it's on our reservation, it is reserved specifically for us and no one else. We did include the universal natural area code, and we know that natural area codes were done by our ancestors. So we put the natural area code. We did include latitude and longitude and the sovereign parcel land number. Okay. And then it says, this universal sovereign notification for use and inhabitation by the people who are the Moorish National Republic federal government of this government property is hereby given. We are the sovereign, ancient, original, indigenous jurisdiction for the land. Okay, so we're letting them know that the building is no longer vacant. It's not vacant by any measure. So then what I did was, before I put this document together, I looked up what is to be done when someone is claiming a vacant property. And I want to show you what that looks like, because that was really interesting. And it shows me also what the hybrids did in order to even come into the things that they've come into. So let me show you that part. Now, we have talked about, yes, Islam, Justice Veermore. He says, stake the four corners, Islam. So we have talked about adverse possession previously. And for us, it is adverse possession. Let me get that out of the way. For us, it's adverse possession, except we spell adverse differently and we put it in red and all lowercase letters if that's the terminology that you want to use. So you can use that terminology. But that process does not stand alone. All of our processes come together as a whole solid process. You can't do one without the other. You can't claim land without a court action. And then doing a court action, there needs to be a lien in place because there has to be a gold-backed value added to what you're doing. And then, because see, when they say things like, here, this starts adverse possession, commonly called squatters' rights. When they say commonly called, they're saying this is what the common law calls it. But for us, the sovereign heirs, it's adverse possession. Adverse. That means that we're speaking against any other possession out there. Speak, because verse always means to speak. So I'll shorten these for you, and then I'll put the link to this in the chat so that you can go back and read it for yourselves in depth. But the link to this is in the chat. So step one, they say read the laws for your state regarding adverse possession. Well, our state is the Moorish National Republic federal government. We're the Moors. That is our state, the government. Number two, they say right off the bat, occupy the property. Okay, that's what they say right off the bat. Now, number three, they say pay the property taxes. Well, for us, we don't do that. We give our sovereign, we speak by affidavit. Number four, it says contact your county clerk's office or deed of registrar. Well, that's us. So that's why those things come into our documents, which state that we are, we're not taxed. And that all that has to do with the property is recorded with our government and no one else's. So we notify them and we record the documents ourselves. And then step 5 says apply for a title for the land. And we all know that they're not going to give them a title. They're only going to give them a deed or something like that. And that's after they have approved their application. But we create sovereign title to the land. And I'll show you here. Let me show you here on YouTube. Just one moment. Where we did a video with this particular parcel of land, where we claimed this parcel of land by doing the title and everything. And when we did all of that, that added to the documents that we put in for the last 3 days. We've done different documents over the last 3 days, and there's one in particular that I want to show you, as well as this notification that the property is taken. But do you see how they simplified the claiming of land? You see how they simplified that? If it appears to be vacant, what to do and how to do it. It is simple, but for us, we're not going to do things randomly. We're going to do things in a manner that is, yes, Justice Yezreel, their tribunals cannot deal with allodiums because our everything that we do is out of their jurisdiction. And that is another reason why our courts had to be active, because there had to be a court that deals with that. Okay, so we looked quickly at what they say about claiming something vacant. And then in the chat, I put the link to the video that I did where I showed title and all of that. But then I had to be tested to see if those documents apply to me, which I didn't mind the testing. It was a beautiful test. I can't say I enjoyed it, but now that I look back on it, it was a beautiful test. I'll tell you that. And that was when I went to the POW camp from the February the 8th until February 19th. And did the demonstration where I was our court and all of that. I am the court. We are all the court. And we did court actions while we were in there. So another document that I did that I want to show you is this one. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I want to show you this document and how it came forth after our conversation yesterday even. So Justice Theodore, thank you for what you've been bringing forth. Because it really brought some things to my remembrance, even about the accepted for value process. Because the accepted for value process is not a process that you do separately standalone. It's not a standalone process. The process is the process that is done along with liens and affidavits and title and all of that. And the accepted for value process, because that's why I never did accept it for value, because I did not see where it fit into the process. Now I can see where it fits into the process. But see, the reason the process has not really worked for anyone who did use it in the past is because there needed to be all of these other things in play. We needed to have our own money. We needed to have our own court. We needed to have our own, we needed to be who we are, which is all levels. We're the government, we're the law, we're all of that. We needed to be all of that on the public record together, all of us. So another document, and again, that document was a one-page document. It didn't take me long to put it together. But let me show you this document that I did with regard to accepted for value, because I know that this document has done what it's supposed to do because of my understanding of it and the affirmation that I got from the ancestors with regard to it. Can you see the document on the screen? It says affidavit for credit, accepted for value. Let me tell you what we're accepting. We're accepting, because this is what we told them to do. That's why it made complete sense to me. We are accepting a valuation that was given to that property. That's what the tax assessor records are all for. It's so we can look at the property or look at the tax assessor record and from our sovereign status say, okay, we agree with that value right there. Except that value, we're going to bring it into our jurisdiction and put it, and we're not bringing a black value in, it's a gold-backed value that we're bringing in. Because again, we raise them from the dead, they're in subject status, and that's why we can take what's written there and bring it into our sovereign jurisdiction. Yes, Justice Israel, their accepted for value processes were incomplete. It's not that they were wrong, you know, and I haven't seen all of them out there. Some of them might have been, you know, not properly executed clearly, but they were incomplete. So the many different processes that are out there need to be brought together. I had to create sovereign title. I had to properly claim it in red and all lowercase letters, or else I would have been looking like a citizen who does not have right to claim it that way, especially when the heirs come into play. So, or when the heirs are standing, let me put it that way. So it's not that the process was wrong, it was incomplete. So let's look at the document. This is what I did. Of course, it starts with our language, our court action language. And then what I did is I listed the property here. This is the property. The parcel number, and again, in red in ancient English and all lowercase letters, etc. Okay. And then I listed the Universal Commercial Code 1 liens that went with it. And again, this is a court action. So I had 2 liens that were done with regard to the property. And the liens were in the constitutional amount of 100 million more sovereign dollarium and or United States dollars, or any combination of those two. And because they don't have any of this constitutional money, we have to accept for value whatever valuation is put on it. And again, it's put on it by the subjects in blue, because that's what we told them to do. That if you usufruct or put something on our land, we need to know the value of it so that when it's time for us to claim it, we can claim it and do it in at law, but in commerce, in merchant commerce or sovereign commerce as well. And so I looked up the value, and it says the assessed amount for the parcel listed above is accepted for value of $2,353,200 Moorish sovereign dollarium, United States dollars. So all I'm saying is I accept your what you put there. Well done, good and faithful servant. You put that, you looked at it and you said, okay, this is what we think, but what do you think? Because it's your land, Moors, you know. And so that's what accepted for value is. Accepted for value is we're saying we have to accept. And accept just means approval, approve of. Yes, we approve of that amount. So it's not any giving jurisdiction or anything. That's why it's in red and all lowercase letters. And it's becoming clearer and clearer why we're doing red and all lowercase letters the more I see coming out. And then it says here, the language that I put in here is all property previously claimed by all debtors on the above named lien instruments is hereby possessed by the creditors to include all apartments, houses, structures, supplies, conveyances, bank accounts, and equipment. Submission of all properly labeled access, keys, codes, and other entry mechanisms for the above named property is due to this government on Thursday, June 10th, 1442, Moorish moon calendar year 2021 Greco-Roman calendar year at 11 a.m. at mailing location, care of, and then we put the mailing location there. It says all other properties covered by the above liens that are currently occupied shall be vacated, and full access to said properties to include all properly labeled access keys, codes, and entry mechanisms are due to this government within 90 days from June 9, 1442, 2021, which shall be September 6, 1442, 2021, which happens to be I think it's either a full moon or there's some event here. So that worked out perfectly. At the said location, and then it lists the location on our reservation. Your submission of said property access tools does not fully satisfy the total lien amount. Therefore, we hereby exercise the right to accept for value all other property named herein to be credited in the same manner by written affidavit for credit. All property is hereby removed from taxation and is the sovereign property for the government. All sovereign rights to amend, update, and or modify sovereign financial instruments are hereby exercised at all times, not pro tunc. All liens and judgments are active into perpetuity. We who have given you the Constitution for the United States, 1789 and 1791, are the supreme law for the land. Then I put the delivery, proof of delivery, notification of delivery, lawful sovereign notifications were delivered as affirmed, and then I put when and where, and then also I videotaped in February proof of them receiving proper documentation as well. Okay. Why 90 days? Because there are a lot of properties out there that the ones that are claiming anything there, that means in their personal, quote unquote, private capacity as well. Is they need to vacate all of that because it's all been liened by us. And we want to give them appropriate time to vacate because it's just the right thing to do. Even though they've been squatting, we had not been governing properly, publicly like this. I can't say we haven't been governing properly because some more somewhere are governing. Our ancestors are governing. Let there be no mistake about that. If they were not governing, we would not be sitting here. We need these properties now. We needed the properties when we kept claiming to be citizens, but we just didn't know that. So we know what we need. We can say we need the properties now, but are we willing to do the study and implement and do the demonstrations no matter what? Are we prepared for the testing? Because we're going to be tested to see, are they really the heirs? Are the heirs really back? Are you willing to be tested? I see the comment in the chat. We need these properties now. Are you willing to be tested now, today, right now? Are you willing? Islam. Then get demonstrating. Demonstrate. And that's not to say go out and rush and do anything. Demonstrate is to study. It's not to go out and rush out there and, you know, do things without studying. We don't do things without studying. So, yes, Islam, got to have support system in place. The support system, I'll tell you this, the support system is actually the documents that are competent. They support one another because they're coming from the heirs. That's what's been missing, is the unification of all the processes being brought in together and then the testing to go with it. Some have known accepted for value process. Some have known the lien process. We've all known we needed our own court. We've all known that. And some have known that, you know, we just all needed to come together so that all the processes came together to make it one full solid process. And then, again, notify. We've been saying that the whole time. We have to know how to notify and what to notify. And we're putting it out there on the public record how to do it. And then we're looking at what they're doing, okay? We're looking at what the hybrids are doing. Empress in the chat, you will need to study, because here's the thing. Even if Moors came from everywhere to be in the property, if the 5 or 6 who know the process decide to go to, you know, look at another property, and all that's left is Moors who don't know how to demonstrate, and some foreigner comes through to test, then there's going to be this other thing, this other issue. Now, Empress in the chat, it would behoove you, okay, well, what you can prove your competence. Where are you located? Where do you domicile? And you don't have to put it in the chat if you don't want to put it in the chat. Okay. The first thing you need to do is save yourself from what it is that you may feel that you want to leave away from. Islam Justice Gilmore. Save yourself first from whatever it is that you need to save yourself from. Because I'll tell you this, no matter where you go, you're going to have to demonstrate who you are. Even if you come here, you're going to have to demonstrate it. And I'm not saying come here, I'm saying demonstrate. These same demonstrations have to be done everywhere. Have you studied sovereign land use and habitation? Have you studied the code and then brought the codes into your sovereign jurisdiction? Have you done sovereign title? Have you put your sovereign appellations on the public record in red and all lowercase letters? And here's the thing too, Empress. I see what you're saying, I feel the energy that's coming from what you're saying there. I feel that, and that's the way we're supposed to feel. Demonstrate right where you are first and save yourself right where you are, because even in Portland, there are some territories and some buildings that need to be gotten there as well. I know, Justice Gio, I know. Do your demonstrations. You have been for many years. Tell us what you've done, Empress, in the chat. Empress Sophia. How many buildings have you claimed there? Because she's saying, I've been for many years, I'm ready. How many buildings have you claimed in Portland territory, allodially and sovereignly? Just think about that. So that needs to be done, because not just we knew that. Not just in this territory, but in all the territories. We need to do these processes. That's why we're putting them on the public record. Be ready to be tested. Don't be afraid of testing, because there's nothing to be afraid of when you just be yourself. Be yourself at peace. Be peaceful with it, because this is not about them. This is about us. And then continue with your demonstration. So these documents, I mean, look at what we had to study. We had to study Universal Natural Area Code. We had to study sovereign parcel land numbers and parcel reports and all of that. We had to study all of that. And we've been putting our study out there so that we can all know how to do it, so that we can move together as a nation. There's a more wants me to come into the meeting. I lost it. Okay. So we want to, these are some of the things that we're studying, and as the hybrids put forth the paperwork and, you know, they're doing all that they're doing exactly what we told them to do, which was get out of the building. Get out of the building. They did that, and then they said, okay, we've done that. We're not occupying it anymore. So when they didn't see any activity there, if, you know, regular activity, then after marking it vacant, they said, okay, let's prompt a little bit more. So we have to know that the subjects are doing what they're supposed to be doing, because we have to know how to govern this land. We have to know when someone says something about a land use code, because ultimately we're not even going to need land use codes, but right now we do, from a universal perspective, because we actually have to put the universal law back in place on this land. Corporate law is not here. There has to be law in place. You see? So, all rise and stand. This is a sovereign court action. We exercise the right to boot out any belligerent Islam. So now there's going to be some other prompting, most likely, in one way or another. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just for us to learn what we need to know about the property access and all of that, buildings and all of that, and how to properly claim and care for the property. Because that's another something that we're going to have to do, and we're going to have to be able to do it without using fiat. We're going to have to be able to get all of the supplies and everything that we need without fiat, using our own gold-backed sovereign, either our instruments, which are liens and court actions, to get what we need and accept it for value and all of that, the credit system. And when I say credit system, I don't mean credit, debt credit. I mean credit from the creditors, which is us. We're going to be giving out credit. And that's what that accepted for value document is. It is a document that says we are crediting that value to ourselves. It is sovereign credit. We're crediting that value to ourselves and to our vast estate. That also gives us the opportunity to bring the property into our sovereign jurisdiction. Okay. And when we look again at how to claim a vacant property, do your research and do your study on that. Because in every single territory, there is property that is vacant. And I did show, let's see, I did show what the vacant sign looks like. Let me see, I think I want to show you what that looks like again so that you can see how vacant properties are marked. And some might say, well, we don't want anything vacant. We want something that's nice and this and that. We'll get there. But we're going to take it a step at a time so that we know how to move about in our sovereign status without being violated. Now, again, we will be tested. Okay? Everything, we're going to be tested. And the testing, just so that you're aware more, the testing it's a real thing. It's, you know, as we demonstrate, we will be tested. That's what the Great Tribulation is. But it's nothing to be afraid of because guess what? The citizens are going to be tested too. So they're actually trying to get themselves in alignment. Just looking at some of the videos and things that the citizens have been doing, the subjects, they are trying to get themselves in alignment too because they see what's happening. And by no means do they want to continue being a part of that corporation. Let me see. I want to show you the sign that what a vacant, an international vacant symbol looks like. Just one moment. Let me see if I can pull it up. Now, I know for a fact there are some territories that have vacant symbols that they're using right now on the buildings. For example, Detroit territory. There are vacant symbols all over buildings and the plants and things that we used to use to manufacture things and to produce goods and things. There's buildings that have vacant symbols on them. Let me see if I can pull that up. And if I can't pull it up right now, I'll find it and post it back on social media so that you can see what it looks like on the building. And I even have it here on my phone as well. I just took another photo of it today. And I'm not sure if I can access it while I'm on the call, but I'm going to try. So these are the things that we should be, this building is a great study tool for us. And that's why we're, and aside from the fact that we need it, it's a great study tool that we can use in order to demonstrate and find out how to do the process. And I'm willing to be the tester to go through the process, whatever it takes, so that we can get what we need. So I have here, let me just pull it up. Okay, I found. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see this, but I'm going to put it here on the screen so you can see the what the international vacant symbol looks like. I took a photo of it because once I got out of the POW camp, I went back to look to see what changes had been made on the building, and they had gotten out. By the time I got out, they had removed all the corporate signage from the building and put international signage up there on the building. Let's see. Hopefully I'll be able to get. My computer's moving a little slow, but we'll get there. Yeah, I wanted to show you what it looks like. But these are all things that we will be going through. We're willing to do the testing and do what we need to do in order to properly claim that which is rightfully ours. Okay, here it is. So okay, let me just show you what that looks like. Okay, can you see the photo on the screen? Okay. This is what they had done by the time I got out of the POW camp. They put this, this is what vacant looks like, this X right here. So they were letting us know that, okay, you passed that test. So we did leave the building because you all, I believe I showed you, I posted a video on social media where there were some foreigners in the building when we went there that day. And by the time we were tested and did our demonstrations and we got out, got ourselves out of the POW camp, they had changed everything around and did what they were supposed to do. So we're continuing with the demonstration. So you can't let anything stop you from continuing your demonstrations once you've been tested. Because sometimes when you're tested, sometimes we get discouraged and we stop, and we just decide that we're not going to go any further. And there have been many more who were competent, fully competent, they just needed to be tested. And they didn't realize that competence is only part of what we're doing. Testing is the other part. Testing is the other part. So now that we have moved forth in our testing, we looked at what it takes to claim the vacant building, and we've done everything, including investigate the codes and all of that. We've sent them the documents, including a newer lien, and we're pulling from the old lien because it's been 90 days since the first lien was put on the building. So we put both liens together on the same accepted for credit or accepted for value affidavit, and we're pulling from those values, and we're saying we accept what you have proposed here in terms of the value of this building, of this structure. And something interesting that I found when I was looking into the code is that in some places, and we've already implemented it universally because I included it in the universal document, they have a code that is known as historical overlay. Historical overlay code for buildings and structures and all of that. I mean, can you imagine what that really means and what they're really saying? Because that's actually the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that they have overlaid our vast estate with structures just standing on top of them, and hid it in the coding that that's what they were doing. They hid it in the coding that they were doing a quote-unquote historic overlay. Historic overlay is another way of saying we're doing the Buck Act on the vast estate. And the Buck Act is where they just capitalize everything and put it on top of that which is already ours. And that's what we're rebutting properly. Okay. Are there any questions about the building, the code, or anything like that? And I'm sharing these because with regard to the building code, there's a building code in this on our reservation that says that certain buildings are marked as government buildings. And the more I looked into that, the more I realized even what the Masonic sign is. You know that G that they have, the Masons, that Masonic G that's underneath the pyramid thing, that symbol for Masons? Well, when you put that G in lowercase letters in red inside that Masonic symbol, that means you're back home, you're back in the pyramid. And then your eye is the one on the top that's connected, and that means you can see. And it sounds like, you know, the symbol will look the same, except it will have a lowercase g in it, and it will be red. That is what you actually put on our government buildings. That's what we're supposed to have on our government buildings. And believe it or not, those hybrids, they've been putting that capital one on the places that they were unlawfully occupying. They just did it where we couldn't see it. I know at Olympia territory, it's out on the building, right out in front. The Masonic sign is at the state capitol at Olympia territory, which is really Mount Olympus, ancient Mount Olympus. So that's another something that we're going to do as time progresses, or as time disappears and goes back where time came from. We're going to be putting the G in a lowercase letter in red on our sovereign property, because the coding is actually universal government. That's what that means. Yes, same thing. And the building is built by my son anyway. So I'm going to put the meeting in. It's going to say mute, but you can unmute yourselves. If you star 6, you can unmute if you have any questions about what we're doing and the claiming of the vacant buildings. And that's why we were saying, we said this about a year ago, that we should probably start our demonstrations of claiming the buildings started with a vacant building so that we can walk through the process properly before we start claiming anything else. You know, because we knew there would be tests along the way before the vast estate could be turned, you know, before access would be given or commanded by us. We needed to be tested. So let's ensure that as we move forward, that we keep in mind that whatever move we make, we're going to be tested on that. And then the ancestors will give us the answers to what we need. Whatever the answer is, the ancestors will make sure that we see it. And then when we see it, it's incumbent upon us to study it. Study it and then implement it. Those codes that they use for buildings to designate what that building is, they were really just pointing me to government. Because one of the original proposals that came in, there was only 2, aside from the sovereign proposal, which is not even on the same plane. But they were proposing that it be an office. They used an office code, but listed under office code is government. So they were essentially going to do that for us. But we can do it. We did it already. We got the message, we got the hint, we paid attention, and then put it in the paperwork. Okay. Justice Theodore, I generally put them under the video. So these documents, every document that I did from start to finish with regard to this property, I'll put it underneath this video. But no,
I'm glad you felt my energy in the chat earlier, Pauline.
When you do that, when you use the document, that you're going to be tested. Okay? You may be tested. Let me put it that way. You might be tested. Okay? It's always a possibility, and so be prepared. Okay? Because we were certainly tested on multiple fronts, in multiple ways, and that's okay. We're built for this, Islam. And so are all Moors. We all have the same blood in our veins, so we're all built for this. I talked to some Moors this week, and they're like, tests, bring it on. I'm like, wait, don't say that. Don't say that. Just get ready first. You know, make sure you study, you know, and then demonstrate.
So actually, you're a bunch of inbreds.
And I had, I actually spoke with one of my good friends, one of my sister friends, and I'm seeing how even as smart as our sister friends are who are not yet fully awake to their Moorish status, that system, I don't care how smart they are, the system is coming down on them very, very hard.
The conference
it's coming down on them.
Goodbye.
Very hard. Islam, Empress. Islam, Empress. Go ahead.
You're going to jail, Pauline.
What happened? Empress? Go ahead, Empress. Justice Almost. It is. We were just having that conversation. Justice Almost put in the chat that it is actually your divine self that tests you. That is actually your divine self that tests you. You are absolutely right. We actually call forth our own test by our demonstrations. We call forth our own test. It was time for me to be tested in February because in January I had done a court action on that black name that was pretending to be me.
Hello.
And so the ancestor said, and if it's okay, go ahead, hybrid.
Hello.
I believe that's one of the
Hello.
hybrids. Go ahead, foreigner. Subject.
I know.
Go ahead. Subject. Go ahead. Speak.
I called the people at the number on the building, and they say that what you're talking.
Oh goodness, there's no number on the building. All right. That's why we try to give people a chance to speak. We don't want to be rude or anything like that, but the foolishness is only sent to distract. So we do call forth our own tests. We were just having that same conversation on our judiciary call this week. When Moors are ready to demonstrate who they really are, for example, Moors will put a tag on their conveyance. You know what, in the chat, the Moors, Islam. So when Moors, for example, when you put the tags on your conveyance, and this is how that test happens. Moors will put a tag on their conveyance, and they will get to experience what it's like. It's a beautiful feeling because the ancestors, and this happened to me too, the ancestors will let us go for weeks, sometimes months, and sometimes years without being tested on the conveyance tag because they want us to know how it feels to be ourselves. It's a beautiful feeling. When I first put conveyance tags on my conveyance in 2017, it was a beautiful feeling. But then I was calling forth my own testing at the time. And the way the test happened is after a few months of me, it was like 2 months of me going throughout the territory, and policy enforcers would pull behind me and then go and leave. They wouldn't do anything. 2 months into it, they pulled me over, and that was a test. And nothing happened. They issued some fraudulent paper. And at that time I was only 3 or 4 months old, 3 months old, 2 or 3 months old. And then, of course, I did my demonstration where I sent them some documents. And at the time, we didn't know about red and all lowercase letters. And they pulled me over 2 months later. And then the third time was the quote-unquote charm, where they pulled me over and then they detained me. But what they're saying is, this is the thing. When we do our demonstrations, we're supposed to demonstrate. We don't have to know the whole thing by the time we demonstrate. We just have to be sincere when we demonstrate. And because of the sincerity, the ancestors got us through those tests. That's why we don't panic when it's testing time. You know, the ancestors got us through the test.
Hung up on me.
And then the ancestors got us through the test. And then when they got us through the test, they said, okay, let's let them go a little longer, and then we'll test her again in a little while, you know, in another few months. We'll test her, let her get her study going, and then we'll test her again later. And I knew it was, the testing was coming, but they were trying to desensitize me to the fear. Yes. Justice Yezreel, that is so true. Tags, documents, ID cards, etc. are brief. Yes. And the testing is to make it so that we get over being afraid. I mean, for some, the worst nightmare was going to jail. That was their worst fear. But once it happened, they realized why it happened. And Moors are not held for long, especially if they're not warring. If there's no war energy and you're at peace, they won't.
That's all right, Negras. We can wait until
your
September.
Test won't be, it won't be long. The testing won't. So you go through the test, and when you come out of the test, you come out better and stronger and faster. And you know a whole lot more when you come out of the testing. Okay. And then a few months later, it was almost a year later that I was tested again, where the policy enforcers came to the domicile 3 weeks in a row. And that was in November, December of the following year of 2018? It was either 2018 or 2019. I believe it was 2019. Then I got through that test, and I was even more fearless after that. Peaceful, but fearless. And I'm just telling you the cycle, the way that it goes, so that when we're tested, we realize that it's a test, and we get over it and keep looking for the lessons and keep going. Because that's where the ancestors are trying to get us to, where we're tested but not broken. Can you hear me? Nobility? Hopefully you can. If you can hear me, go ahead and put something in the chat.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So the testing is to ensure that when we're tested, we're not broken, we're not bitter, and we're not at war. It's just to make us better. That's all it is to make us better. These hybrids are subject to us, and they know it. They know it. But we have to strengthen up. We have to strengthen up. And the only way we can strengthen up is to go beyond the trauma. And to me it's not trauma, but for some it has been. This is the Great Tribulation. It's the Great Tribulation. And the problem comes in when Moors are tested and they're looking outside of them to either blame someone or even credit someone. I can't credit anyone and I can't blame anyone. All of that is in the mirror. But, you know, this is the Great Tribulation where we get to take hold of the vast estate. And I spoke with a Moor today who said that they did everything right and they were still violated. And I thought about that and I said, you know, we're all doing everything right because we're standing up and being ourselves. We already won this, but then we have to get the inside to where it needs to be, where we're not warring and we're not mad and we're not bitter, but that we're looking for the lessons in the test. And then when we come out of the test, no matter what the test is, the test can be eviction or pulled over or detainment or whatever the test is. Because see, here's the thing. If we don't stand up, they're going to get worse. It's going to get much worse. I see it happening to those that are still trying to act like they don't know who they are. They don't want to let that corpse go. Gotta let it go. I see it and I'm like, it doesn't have to be that hard. You don't, come on now, sis. You're going to have to, we all have to do it. We all have to do it. Justice Yezerel, I'm not even going to read that. Would you please speak on that? Because that is so profound and to the point. I like that while I'm speaking. So I'm putting it another way so that others can hear it.
Yeah, you know how they say, is the glass half empty or is it half full?
Yeah.
A lot of people think that's trivial, but what it really teaches you is that there are different ways that you can look at a thing that either empower you or they immobilize you. We can always look at stuff in a way that, grips us in fear. But I think that part of this whole process is learning to look at things in a different way, a way that empowers us.
Yeah. Everything is for our good. Everything is for our good. Everything, no matter what it is for our good. There is nothing out there that's against us. Nothing. But it's all based on our perspective of why we're really here. Why are you here? That's a good question to ask ourselves. Why are we here? We're here to grow into our godness. Even more so than we already were. So I'm watching this thing unfold. It's like peeling an onion. The layers are coming off, and we see the beauty and the life of the seed that is contained within. The ancestors have us. Yes, Justice Frank. The ancestors are going to look out for us through this whole thing. I see where, when I'm just doing my demonstrations, that the ancestors are having me sidestep certain things, and I'm like, it would have been easier to do it that way. But then when they tell me why it was done that way, why they had me to do it that way, I'm like, that makes complete sense. It makes complete sense. And it also shows that we know that the ancestors know what they're doing through us, all of us. All of us. There's no wrong way to be ourselves on this land. There's another test that has come forth for me where the Moorish sovereign delarium is concerned. And If that had happened a year ago, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. But I know what it means. I know what that test means. And I'm so excited about it because the test is telling me that we never needed GI in the first place. But that also let me know that I'm doing some things that are the right things to do in terms of the processes. And that's why I'm sharing these processes that I'm doing so that we can all see that everything goes together. All of the processes and things that we learned in the past, we're just putting them all together, and that's the estate. The estate is in our hands when we do that. All day, every day. This is the year that we possess the land. So, are there any other questions, comments, wisdom to add? I get so much wisdom from the Moors and Rees that I feel like I'm sitting on the sidelines just listening and learning. You can star 6 if you want to speak. Islam. Yes, it is, Justice Frank, in the chat. Okay. So with regard to these documents, go ahead and make the documents up for yourself. You don't even need to get them from me. I'm showing you the documents here so that you can take this video and craft your documents and make them look and be the same as the ones that we're showing here. I want to show you again. I'll go back through the accepted for value document. Let me make sure it's on the screen. Let's see.
Give it up, Pauline. You're going to jail.
Is accepted for value on the screen? Can you see it there on the screen?
No, it's nothing showing on the screen.
Okay. All right. Go back over. And of course, you know, just a moment. Okay, there it is. I'm actually having to sign back in. Okay. Okay, so my computer is doing funny things, and that's okay. You did get to see the documents earlier, so just rewind the video.
Maybe it's
and, just rewind the video. Rewind the video and look at the documents again so that you can see them, and they will be underneath this video as well. So if there's nothing further, we can go ahead and adjourn here until Sunday. Peace and grand rising to the heirs. Islam.
Grand Rising. Grand Rising.
Grand Rising.
Islam, Grand Rising.
Peace.
Grand Rising. Grand Rising. Peace and love.
Oh, grateful Empress. Grand Rising. Grand Rising, Empress. Grand Rising.